Usually when we kick off these deep dives, I'm sort of bouncing off the
Oh,
walls.
yeah.
I've usually got my coffee, I've got a stack of research, and we're ready to sprint through some high-velocity topic like AI agents or the latest space launch. We're usually chasing the new, trying to keep up.
Right. What's the headline? What just dropped?
Exactly. But today feels different. I actually want to slow down. I want to start with a tone of quiet curiosity. Because the material we're looking at today isn't just about technology or history or physics. It's about a hidden pattern that seems to shape all of those things at once.
It really is a different kind of journey today. We aren't looking at a product launch or a political event. We are looking at, well, the fundamental structure of how we organize reality. And to be honest, once you see this pattern, it's a little haunting. You start to see it everywhere you look.
Everywhere. That's it exactly. We are diving into a really fascinating exploration titled From Flow to Pieces and Back Again. It's by Lev Nemotin, PhD, and it's from his channel, Uncompressed Thinking. And I have to say, the name of that channel is just perfect for what we're about to do. We are going to uncompress some very dense, very beautiful ideas.
Nemotin provides a lens that, once you look through it, you can't really unsee. He argues that we are in the middle of a massive historical arc. We usually assume that the future of technology means getting more digital, more abstract, more
removed from nature.
yes, more removed from nature.
Right. That's the standard sci-fi trajectory. We think of high tech as screens, code, the matrix shiny, digital, and totally separate from the mud and the dirt of the real world. We assume the ultimate goal is to, upload our brains into the cloud and leave the physical body behind.
Precisely. But the premise here is that we might be wrong about that entire trajectory. The argument is that the future of high technology might actually require us to go back to nature. That we've been on this journey from a world of flow, which is how nature works, into a world of pieces, which is how computers work. And now, out of necessity, we might be turning back again.
From flow to pieces and back again. It sounds almost poetic, doesn't it? But as we're going to find out, this isn't just philosophy or poetry. It's about the hard physical limits of our universe. It's about energy consumption, heat, and literally the future of artificial intelligence.
The stakes are surprisingly high.
So let's unpack this. And to do that, we have to start way, way back. We're not starting with silicon chips or electricity. We're starting with paper.
Let's step back in time. I want you to imagine walking into a very old space. Maybe it's an ancient synagogue or a dusty museum archive or, the great library of Alexandria before the fires.
Okay, I'm with you.
The air smells like old parchment, maybe a little beeswax and dust. And you walk up to a text, but it's not a book. It's a scroll.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Two heavy wooden handles, a long sheet of parchment rolled up tight. It's heavy. It has a real presence.
It does. Now, think about the physical act of reading that scroll. If you want to read a passage that's in the middle or check a reference near the end, what do you have to do?
I have to unroll it. I have to physically scroll past everything that comes before it to get to the part I want. I can't just snap my fingers and be there.
Exactly. To read it, you must essentially unroll time. The knowledge in a scroll is linear. It's a flowing continuum.
A continuum, right?
You can't just teleport to the end. You have to traverse the distance. The information is bound to the physical continuity of the paper.
It's a journey. You're on a road, and on a road, you can't just skip 5 miles. You have to walk them. You have to pass the trees and the mile markers to get to your destination.
Yes, knowledge behaves like a road. But then, at some point in history, specifically around the 1st century AD, though it took centuries to catch on, humanity makes a mechanical change that seems deceptively simple. It's almost invisible in how boring it sounds.
Okay.
We stopped rolling the paper and we started folding it.
The birth of the book. The codex.
The codex. We stacked the sheets, stitched them, and bound them along one edge. And suddenly, everything changed. Because with a book, if you want to get to page 173, you don't have to read pages 1 through 172.
You just flip. You fan the pages, and boom, you're there. You jump.
You jump. And that is the aha moment. That is the birth of random access.
Random access. That's a computer term. We usually talk about random access memory in our laptops, but you're saying the book was the original RAM.
In a structural sense, absolutely.
Yeah.
The book allowed us to treat knowledge not as a linear road, but as spatial map.
A map, I like that.
You could jump to any coordinate, page 5, paragraph 2.
Yeah.
That address exists independently of the beginning or the end. We took a flow, the scroll, and we chopped it into discrete, addressable locations called pages.
That's such a subtle shift, but when you put it that way, it's huge. It changed how we think. We stopped thinking in terms of this follows that and started thinking in terms of this is located here.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed for citations, right? It allowed for indexes.
It created the concept of the index. You can't really index a scroll effectively. Go to the 40th foot of parchment isn't a great user experience.
No, not at all.
But, see, page 40 is instant. It turned a flow into pieces. And this brings us to the core concept Moten introduces, which he calls the chunking principle.
The chunking principle. Okay, definition time. Because this sounds like the engine that drives the whole theory. What exactly are we dealing with here?
So the chunking principle is the conversion of a flowing continuum into discrete, manipulable units. It's the act of taking something that behaves like water fluid, inseparable, continuous, and forcing it to behave like Lego bricks.
Water to Lego. I love that image
Yeah.
because you can't stack water. You can't organize water into a nice grid. You can't build a tower out of soup.
No.
But you can do whatever you want with Lego.
Exactly. And once you have this chunking principle in your head, you start seeing it everywhere. It's not just books. It's how we conquered the world, in a way. Let's look at music. Think about the difference between a violin and a piano.
Okay, let's go there. I played a bit of guitar growing up, and the violin always intimidated me because it's fretless, right? There are no markers.
Correct. When a violinist plays, they slide their finger along the string. They can play a C, and they can play a C sharp, but they can also play the infinite number of microtones between those two notes.
Ah, okay.
The pitch is continuous, it flows. If their finger is a millimeter off, the note changes slightly.
It's analog. It's a slide. That's why it can sound so emotional, like a human voice weeping, because it slides between the notes. It's not stepping. It's gliding. It feels organic.
But that fluidity has a cost.
Yeah.
It is incredibly hard to play perfectly in tune. It is hard to replicate. If I play a violin solo and I ask you to play it back exactly the same way down to the microhertz, you can't do it.
Yep.
It is hard to write down exactly what that microtone was.
Right.
Now look at the piano.
The piano is a machine. It looks like furniture, but it's a machine. It has keys.
It is a grid.
Yep.
You have a key for C. You have a key for C sharp. There's nothing in between. You cannot play a note halfway between two keys on a standard piano.
You can try, but you just get a dissonant crunch.
You just get a crunch. We took the continuous spectrum of sound, the flow, and we chunked it into 88 discrete pieces.
And the piano conquered the world. It became the standard for Western music theory.
It did. But why? Because pieces are manageable. Because of that discreteness, the piano made music reproducible.
Yeah.
You could write a sheet of music, which is just a coordinate system for the keyboard, send it to the other side of the world, and someone else could hit the exact same keys and produce the exact same song. It made music teachable, shareable, and standardizable.
So we gave up the infinite nuance of the slide, but we gained the ability to copy and control.
That is the trade-off of the chunking principle. You lose the nuance, but you gain control. And we did this with everything. Look at photography.
Right. Old school film versus digital.
Film is chemistry. It's silver halide crystals suspended in gelatin reacting to light. It's a gradient. It's organic. If you zoom in on film, you see grain, random clumps of crystals. It flows.
And digital cameras.
Pixels. A grid. We literally chop the light into millions of little squares. We say, you are red, you are blue, you are green.
We impose a grid on reality.
We impose a grid on reality. We took the flow of light and turned it into a mosaic of tiles. If you zoom in far enough on any digital image, even an 8K one, you eventually hit the blocks. You hit the Lego.
And geography, too. I remember looking at old hand-drawn maps where the coastline just sort of squiggled naturally. It felt like a drawing of the land. Now, with GPS...
It's coordinates. It's precise numbers. Latitude, longitude, down to the millimeter. We took the terrain and turned it into a database. We chunked the earth.
So if we look at this pattern, scroll to book, violin to piano, film to pixel, terrain to GPS, it's all the same move. We are taking the world, which is naturally smooth and continuous, and we are slicing it up into little boxes so we can manage it.
Yes. And Moten sums this up beautifully with a simple phrase. A flow is beautiful. Pieces are powerful.
Pieces are powerful. That sticks with you. But let's dig into the why. Why does chopping things up make us so much more powerful? Is it just about organization?
It's more than that. There are a few key superpowers that pieces have that flows simply don't.
Okay.
First, as we mentioned, they can be indexed. You can find them instantly. Imagine trying to find a specific wave in the ocean versus finding a specific brick in a wall.
Right. Third brick from the left, second row down. Easy. No problem.
Second, and this is huge, They can be duplicated perfectly.
This is the digital copy argument. If I try to copy a painting by hand to flow, I'll never get the brush strokes exactly right. I'm human. But if I copy a digital file, which is just a stack of pieces, it is mathematically identical.
Exactly. If I send you a PDF, you don't get a pretty good version of the PDF.
You get the PDF.
You get the exact same sequence of bits. Peace also survive noise. This is error correction. If you have a slightly fuzzy signal, but you know it's supposed to be a 1 or a 0, you can fix it. You can snap it back to the grid.
That's really interesting. So if a violinist plays slightly sharp, they're just sharp. It's wrong, or at least different. But if a computer signal is slightly weak, the computer just says, that's close enough to a 1. I'll call it a 1.
It snaps to the grid, it cleans itself up, and finally, pieces can be rearranged. Like we said, it's Lego.
Right.
You can take the pieces of a house and build a boat. You can't do that with water. Once you chunk a sentence into words, you can edit the sentence. You can move the words around. If it's just a primal screen, a flow of sound, you can't really edit the screen. You can only start over.
So this ability to chop the world up is what built modern civilization. It's how we organize our libraries, our music, our maps, our economies. And I guess this leads us to the ultimate chunking machine.
The computer?
The digital revolution. This is the apex of the story so far.
This is the digital apex. We tend to think computers invented this idea of bits, but Nemotin argues they didn't invent it, they just perfected it. They took the chunking principle to its absolute logical extreme.
Because in a computer, literally everything is a piece. There is no gray area.
Everything. 0 or 1. True, false. On or off. It is the smallest possible chunk. We decided to represent reality itself as sequences of these tiny switches.
Everything.
Sound, images, motion, language, bank accounts, scientific models. All of it reduced to vast oceans of discrete states switching billions of times per second.
And it was a triumph. I mean, we can't understate that. We aren't sitting here bashing computers. They worked.
It worked astonishingly well. It allowed us to build the internet, global finance, space travel. It allowed us to communicate across the globe instantly. It seemed like there was no limit to what we could do if we just chopped things into small enough pieces.
The resolution just kept getting higher.
Exactly. We thought, if we just have enough pixels, reality will be perfect.
But, and there's always a but in these deep dives, or else the episode would be 5 minutes long.
There's always a but.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we're not just patting ourselves on the back for inventing the microchip. Lev Nemotin points out that this victory has a hidden cost, a cost we didn't really notice until recently.
Success changes the problem. That's a rule of life. The digital abstraction worked so well that we started to mistake the map for the territory. We started to think the world was made of bits, but the world never stopped being continuous.
Right. Reality didn't get the memo that we switched to binary.
Exactly. Fluids still flow. Electromagnetic fields vary smoothly. Bodies move through space without teleporting from pixel to pixel. The physical universe is, at its heart, analog. It is continuous.
So when we use a digital computer to simulate the real world, like, say, predicting the weather or modeling airflow over a wing, what are we actually doing?
We are faking it. We are approximating. We're taking that smooth curve of the wind and chopping it into billions of tiny little steps. And if you make the steps small enough, it looks smooth.
Like a high-resolution screen.
It's exactly like a high-resolution screen. If the pixels are small enough, you don't see the grid. But the grid is there.
But doing that chopping reality into tiny pieces just to glue them back together to look like reality, that takes work. That takes energy.
It takes an enormous amount of work. And this is the heavy industry reveal. For a long time, we treated software like it was magic. Like it was weightless. We talk about the cloud. It sounds so fluffy and ethereal.
Oh, just put it in the cloud.
Just put it in the cloud.
But the cloud is actually a warehouse in Northern Virginia full of servers.
It's a warehouse full of hot silicon, sucking up megawatts of electricity, requiring massive cooling towers that evaporate millions of gallons of water. As we have moved into AI and computer vision and these complex models of reality, the bottleneck has shifted. It's no longer about writing clever code. It's about heat. It's about energy.
Nemotin has this great line, abstraction is not weightless. I feel like we need to print that on a t-shirt.
That's the key takeaway. Every time you flip a bit, you pay a tax in energy. Every time you try to simulate a continuous reality using discrete pieces, you are fighting against the nature of the universe.
You're fighting a current.
You are. You have to burn energy to maintain the illusion of continuity. This is the Landauer limit in physics. There's a minimum amount of energy required to erase a bit of information. But modern computers are millions of times less efficient, than that theoretical limit.
So digital computation at a planetary scale. The scale we are operating at now with AI isn't just math anymore. It looks like heavy industry. It looks like steel mills. We're talking about AI data centers that need their own nuclear power plants.
It does. And this brings us to the ultimate comparison, the contrast that really exposes how inefficient our pieces strategy has become. We have to look at the machine that is doing what we are trying to do, but doing it effortlessly.
The human brain.
The brain, the thing inside your skull right now.
Okay, let's look at the specs here. I've read that the brain runs on about 20 watts of power.
Roughly 20 watts. A dim light bulb. That is the energy budget of the human brain.
A dim light bulb.
And with that 20 watts, it perceives the world in high definition, it processes language, it coordinates complex movement, it imagines the future, it feels emotions, and it learns in real time.
And meanwhile, to train a large language model,
Yeah.
just to teach it to talk, we are using enough energy to power a small city.
Yeah,
We are burning coal and gas to teach a rock how to speak.
exactly. A massive data center consuming megawatts. The efficiency gap is astronomical. We are talking about orders of magnitude, and why? Because the brain isn't using the chunking principle in the same way. The brain doesn't have a clock cycle. It doesn't have lines of code.
It's not running software. That's weird to think about. I always think of my brain as running human OS.
Not in the way a computer does. In a computer, the hardware and the software are separate. You can run Windows on a Dell or Lenovo. The software doesn't care about the hardware. But in the brain, the hardware is the software. The memory is stored in the physical connections of the synapses. The computation is inseparable from its physics. The chemicals, the ions flowing across membranes, the structure of the neurons. The physics is the computation. It doesn't simulate reality, it participates in it.
It participates in it. That's a heavy concept. Let's dig into that. Because Nemoten asks this provocative question. What if our digital machines are solving the wrong problem in the right way?
Or rather, solving the right problem in the wrong way. We are trying to understand a physical world using a symbolic tool.
There's this analogy in the source material that completely blew my mind. It really clicked for me. It's about the falling object.
This is my favorite part of the argument. It clarifies everything. Imagine you drop a rock.
Okay, rock is falling. It's heading for my foot.
Now, if you want a digital computer to tell you where that rock is going to be in 1 second, what does it do?
It calculates.
It takes the laws of physics, gravity, air resistance, translates them into math equations, breaks those equations into discrete time steps, and calculates the trajectory. It crunches numbers.
It's thinking really hard. Okay, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. Wind is this. Drag coefficient is that. It's running a simulation.
Right. But what does the rock do? Does the rock calculate? Does the rock possess a CPU?
No, the rock just falls.
The rock just falls. Nature does not calculate the trajectory.
Yeah.
Nature simply executes the laws of physics.
Wow.
The universe doesn't need to run a simulation to know what happens next. It just happens. The rock solves the differential equation of its fall instantly with infinite precision just by existing.
That is, wow. Okay, so when we use digital computers, we are essentially forcing a rock to take a math test to figure out how to fall. But the rock already knows how to fall just by being a rock.
Exactly. Let's use another example.
Yeah.
A lens. If you want to focus light digitally, you have to take an image, digitize it, run a Fourier transform, apply a filter, and do billions of multiplications.
A ton of work.
A piece of glass, a lens, just lets the light pass through it. The physics of the glass, the refraction, does the work instantly. Zero latency. Zero power consumption beyond the light itself. The universe is continuously executing its own laws.
So for the last, say, 70 years, we've been obsessed with the computer approach. Symbolic, digital, calculated. But nature has been using the physics approach, continuous, immediate, effortless.
And that is where the pendulum is starting to swing. We're realizing that the cost of abstraction is getting too high. We can't just keep building bigger power plants to run bigger digital simulations. We need to get back to the flow. We need to return to physics-native computation.
Physics-native computation. This is the back again part of the title. We went from flow, which was nature, to pieces, digital, and now we're going back to flow. But this doesn't mean we're throwing away our iPhones and going back to smoke signals. This isn't a Luddite argument.
No, absolutely not. It's not about nostalgia. It's about efficiency. It's about a hybrid future. We are seeing the emergence of technologies that try to harness the natural behavior of matter to do the thinking for us. We want to stop simulating the rock and start using the rock.
Let's talk about some of these technologies, because they sound like science fiction, but they are real. The big one everyone talks about is quantum computing.
Quantum is the poster child for this shift. Think about a bit in your laptop. It's a 0 or a 1. It's a piece, a discrete chunk.
Right.
But a quantum bit is different. It exists in a state of superposition. It explores a continuous state space. It behaves like a wave. It behaves like a flow.
Okay.
When you run a quantum algorithm, you aren't just crunching numbers one by one. You are setting up a physical system where the answer emerges from the interference patterns of probability.
So you're letting the physics of the universe solve the problem. You're setting up a landscape and letting water find the lowest point rather than checking every single point on the map yourself.
That's a great analogy. You are harnessing the laws of quantum mechanics directly. You aren't simulating them, you're using them.
And it's not just quantum, right? There are other ways to do this. I've heard about chips that try to mimic the brain.
Neuromorphic chips. This is a huge area of research. These are computer chips designed to physically mimic the structure of the brain.
So they're not based on standard architecture.
Not at all. Instead of logic gates that just say true, false, they have electronic neurons and synapses. They use spikes of electricity. They are trying to get the hardware to behave like the wetware of our brain.
So they are event-based. They don't have a clock ticking away a billion times a second.
Exactly. If nothing is happening, they use zero power, just like your brain. If you're staring at a blank wall, your visual cortex isn't firing like crazy.
Right.
But a digital camera is processing white, 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 white 30 times a second, regardless. Neuromorphic chips bring back that analog efficiency.
And what about optical systems? Computing with light. That sounds like Star Trek.
Yes. Using light instead of electricity. Remember the lens analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You can build optical processors where you shine a light through a complex prism or a set of gratings, and the pattern of light that comes out the other side is the answer to your calculation.
No way.
You do the math at the speed of light, literally, with almost zero heat generation.
That's incredible. It's like we're building machines that don't think in the traditional sense. They just flow to the answer.
That's the goal. Nemotin calls it stabilizing physical systems. The idea is to let physics handle the heavy lifting, the flow, the complex dynamics, while digital logic handles the coordination, the error correction, the control.
So the digital part becomes the manager, but the physical part does the actual work.
Exactly. We stop using digital logic to simulate the waterfall. We just build a waterfall and measure it.
This feels like a massive shift in how we define intelligence or computing. Because for the last few decades, we've defined computing as processing symbols. Input goes in, math happens, output comes out.
And that definition is expanding. We are moving toward a definition where computing is about embodying reality.
Embodying reality. What does that mean for the future of AI? Because right now, AI, like the big LLMs we use, is just a really, really big text file, basically. It's just predicting the next word based on statistics.
Right now, AI is descriptive. It describes reality using symbols. But future systems might embody reality. If we can build hardware that actually functions like a brain physically, or functions like a quantum system, we aren't just pushing bits faster, we are orchestrating processes.
Guiding flows rather than issuing instructions. It sounds more like gardening than programming.
Yes, I like that. Think about it in terms of energy again. Evolution produced the human brain because energy was scarce. You couldn't just plug into a nuclear reactor. You had to be smart on 2,000 calories a day, which is basically a sandwich and a soda.
Survival of the most efficient. If you were smart but burned 10,000 calories an hour, you starved to death.
Exactly. Technology is now hitting that same wall. We can't just keep scaling up energy consumption. We can't cover the Earth in solar panels just to run a chatbot. Sustainable intelligence must be efficient.
It has to be.
And the only way to get that efficiency back is to stop fighting physics and start using it.
It's almost humbling, isn't it? We spent all this time building these perfect, logical, digital castles in the sky, thinking we had surpassed nature. We thought we had fixed the messiness of the real world with our clean, crisp pixels. And now nature is looking at us like, you guys tired yet? Ready to do it the easy way?
It is humbling. And it's a reminder that physics refuses to choose sides. Physicists debate whether the universe is fundamentally analog or digital. Is space smooth, or is it made of tiny pixels called the Planck length?
And what's the answer? I feel like the answer is going to be both.
The answer seems to be yes. Quantum field theory says fields are continuous, which is analog, but particles are discrete, which is digital. The universe seems perfectly comfortable being both at the same time.
So our technologies should reflect that. We shouldn't be dogmatic about everything must be digital. We should be hybrid.
We should be hybrid? Use digital for what it's good at: exact math, storage, banking records. I don't want my bank account to flow. or be approximate. I want every penny accounted for.
Definitely. Keep the bank accounts digital, please.
But use analog, use physics for what it's good at: perception, movement, complex modeling, intelligence.
This really changes how I look at the device in my pocket. I realize now that it's a chunking machine. It's a machine designed to slice the world into pieces. But maybe the device in my pocket 10 years from now will be something different. Maybe it'll be a flow machine.
It might be. Or at least it will contain a flow core inside it. A
Yeah.
little piece of captured physics doing the things that silicon chips just can't handle anymore.
It's a fascinating trajectory. We started with the scroll, the ultimate flow. We invented the book and the bit, the ultimate pieces. We built a civilization on the power of those pieces. But now, to go further, we have to remember where we came from.
The digital revolution wasn't the destination. That's the crucial insight. We tend to think we've arrived at the end of history.
Yeah, this is it.
Everything is digital now, we're done.
Right.
No, the digital revolution was just a stage. It was the abstraction phase. It was the phase where we learned to control symbols. Now we are entering the re-engagement phase. We're going back to the physical world, but armed with everything we learned during the digital age.
We're returning to the scroll, but we're bringing the index with us.
Beautifully put. We are returning to the flow, but with the ability to guide it.
This has been such a mind-expanding conversation. It's one of those topics that changes how you look at everything. Music, books, your phone, even the wind. I want to circle back to where we started, Lev Neymotin and uncompressed thinking. It really feels like we just uncompressed a lot of history.
We did, and I think the message is ultimately hopeful. It's not about the end of progress. It's about a new kind of progress, one that is more in tune with the physical limits and the physical beauty of the universe. It's about working with the grain of reality instead of cutting against it.
So for everyone listening, next time you look at a piano or a digital photo or even just read a book, think about the pieces, think about the grid, and then look out the window at the wind in the trees or the water flowing in a river and think about the flow. And ask yourself, where are we going next?
And remember that final thought from the source material. It's something I think will stick with me for a long time.
Lay it on us.
The universe has always been computing. We are just learning, once again, how to let it.
We are just learning how to let it. That is a perfect place to land.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure to explore the flow and the pieces with you.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.